Like chip.
Oh my God.
Two.
Going up today, we can open up the press conference, front row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
It's not what I was expecting you to ask, you know? Right here. Who's the starting? Third down. We found ourselves this year so far, third twos, third threes that we haven't converted on offense. As we get it fixed, we do a better job of that. There's just been a situation we haven't executed very well. Those situations we expect to, and third and long, third and extra long, different story, but
short. We got to keep drives going. We're doing 2 questions. Yeah. So after reviewing the film, we've decided that Kyle's going to be the starter, and that make that distinction. We still plan on playing Devin, but we feel like Kyle has really stepped up to and deserves to be the starter. So we're going to go ahead and make that distinction.
All right, fourth row right, Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Ron, when you looked at the film, what stood out about Kyle for you to make that decision?
Yeah, just the overall consistency that I think he's been playing with. He made some nice throws. He kept the offense going. He came out of the gates playing efficient football, and that's what we're going to look for moving forward. But I would just say overall consistency.
Sometimes like the outside narrative is that like it's just Youngstown State, but when you have a quarterback who's making his career start, seeing even just incremental progress,
right.
What does that do for his confidence?
Yeah, I think it's building. You can see, I think, regardless of the opponent, when you play in Ohio Stadium and you get your second start, you have to see how people are going to react. I thought he was much more poised in this game than the first one, and I think that's natural. So again, we'll see if we can build on that. But like you said, bigger challenges ahead.
All right, Adam King, WBNS.
What will Devin's role be moving forward? Do you know? Do you want to get him out there still scheduled drives, or is it just whenever you get a chance?
Yeah, we'd like to. We'd like to get him out there and play. I think it depends on the opponent, depends on the strategy. There's a lot that'll come into play each week. I don't think it'll be something that we do the same thing every week, but we'll look at the opponent, we'll look at the situation, we'll look at the schematics of it all, and see where he fits.
How important is this week for Kyle to get out there and have one full game as the starter before going to South Bend?
I think it's important for everybody to play well this week. We have to keep upgrading and keep playing. Kyle's no different, but I think we all want to have a great week of work, and we all want to keep getting better. And now we're getting into game 3, so want to keep building and growing. I think it's a really important week for us.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Brad, when you reviewed the film, what did you like from the offensive line, and what still concerns you about those 5 days?
Yeah, I thought the protection overall was solid. I think they gave Kyle some good time. Got to keep building on that. I thought their effort and their finish was much better, and there was some good plays where I thought we came off the ball, but again, overall consistency is something that we're working on, and we got to get better. But there was some improvement there. But we expect on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 to execute, to get first downs, and there was a couple penalties in there as well. So got to clean those things up.
Josh specifically, he shows progress in blocking, but then has the penalties. How do you keep his mind right and make sure that he knows that, hey, you're still on track to do something that we want you to do?
Yeah, it's constant communication, and that's on us as coaches to make sure that we're doing the right things that he can do, and allowing him to play free and not worry about making mistakes, but at the same time think clearly and be able to put his best foot forward, put his best play on the field. If we're doing too many things that we got to cut back, if we're not doing enough to put him in a situation to be successful, then we have to look at that. And he has to just keep growing. But the more he plays, the better he's going to be. The talent's there.
All right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, you've expressed some frustration several times now about the shortening of the game, the fewer the plays. That's not changing. If you had a chance to talk to your staff about what can you do differently to take advantage of this?
I think it's just on a week-to-week basis. I think we're in for a different challenge this week. This week you're going to see a team that throws the ball a lot more, plays faster, different challenge. So we'll just take it on a week-to-week basis, and Listen, the bottom line is, if we get off the field or we convert on third downs, then we're moving more efficiently, and that's got to be the goal. But we do talk about what teams, goal is on each side of the ball and how they, plan to attack us. And so, we have to adjust and adapt based on who we're playing. And this week will be a different challenge.
You said also that it's guys deserve to play. That's got to be hard as a coach when guys don't get to play. And how hard is that? Can you describe talking to guys that don't even get in a game because mainly of this shortened game?
Yeah, I think they understand, but they want to get on the field. They came here to play, and we want to get them in the game. And the guys that deserve to. There's some guys that are still young that are working their way up, and the goal is that by the end of the season we have really good depth at all positions. And so that's where the growth during the season and the work that we have to put in. We're going to be a lot different team now than we are in a couple of weeks, and vice versa. So, I think that it's going to be important to try to get as many guys in the game as we can. But at the same time, we got to get the guys who are starters and the first string guys in there to get enough reps to continue to build.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, is there anything that can make an offensive line sort of more adept to zone schemes versus gap schemes or vice versa? And have you observed anything about your line relative to that in these first two games?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Some teams, like you said, some guys are more for gap schemes. They're just the size of the guys. Usually the bigger, stronger guys are a little bit more of the gap schemes. More athletic teams usually do a little bit more of the zone schemes. I think our guys can do both. I think they have the size and the athleticism to do both. And when you can change up what you're doing against the defensive line, where one time you're down blocking on them, the next time you're really zone reaching them and creating space, you're putting them in stress. But that's only if we're fitting them up right and we're hitting them right. I do think there was some good hits on Saturday. I do, but not nearly consistent enough.
It seemed like compared to the Indiana game, maybe you guys were a little more inside run focused against Youngstown State. Is that just a product of the opponent, or are you just trying to work through some stuff? Is that perhaps something you think you guys might do better? What was the thought process?
Once in a while, you got to just say, hey, we're gonna run the ball up the middle and make 4 yards and then do it again. That's part of growing a team and building a team. I thought, we did a nice job a couple of times of getting the ball to the perimeter and creating some explosive plays, but ultimately, we also have to run the ball inside the tackles. So there's a little bit of both going on there, especially in a game early in the season.
Fourth row middle, Tony Gerben, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, in the process of getting your starting quarterback, how much of an impact do you think that has had on third downs and offensive efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback is a huge part of that. As we know, the quarterback really gets judged on third down in the red zone. Opportunities to throw the ball down the field, play action, and to create explosives, decision making. But yeah, I mean that's going to be a big part of it, and the timing and all that. But I think that there's been enough this year in that third and medium 3, 4, 2 that we haven't converted on that we got to help them with.
Has that been more of an offensive line thing, or what?
I don't think you can point to one thing, but that's what happens, when you have some inexperience there. It's one thing here, one thing there, and you add those up, and you're not as efficient as you'd like to be. So we've met as a group, we've talked about it. We're going to try to give them a good plan and go after it again this week.
Going back to Rob's question about the clock and the rules, you obviously dealt with similar rules in the NFL. I know it's been quite a while since you were there, but how much can you draw back on your experiences of being a offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, that to help it?
Yeah, I just think it's a totally different game. Even I threw on a little bit of that Jets game last night and just watched it. It just, you break the huddle at 15, and just the numbers aren't as big in that league as it is in college, and it's very different that way. They play the game in the middle of the field. You really don't see any teams in the NFL go no huddle. Most of them are huddling for the most part, and so it's just different. There's just not as many plays in the NFL as there is in college. More games in the regular season, so just different. Yeah.
Second row middle, Steven, Cleveland.com.
Just more on the clock thing as a play caller. When you have certain things that you're trying to get done, the drive, things you want to get done in a game. How have the clock rules maybe affected what you a run on game day? And also, like, do you feel like when you call something, it has to be more maximized than maybe in the past?
Yeah. And there's no question. It has to. We've talked about that as a team. It has to be more efficient. We got to come out of the gates and be efficient. I thought we did that. In the first quarter, we took the ball and we were. How does it affect a game like it was on Saturday? You're trying to play fast. We're trying to play fast. They're trying to play slow. That's just kind of the back and forth of it all. When we start getting into some different games down the road, that's not going to be the focus. The focus will be on winning the game. But we tried to get as many plays as we possibly could.
Your numbers, just your efficiency numbers, are maybe down from the last couple of years. It's only 2 game samples, so I can understand that. But is the lack of efficiency just trying to adjust to the clock situation, or is that an execution problem?
I just think that there's less bats right now, and it's also based on our opponents and the way that they played the game. It was a little bit probably like playing, some of the service academies. They're running the ball, and that's smart by them. It's good by them. It's just a different style of game. I think about maybe some of the games in the past that we were playing against no huddle teams that threw it sort of like the team that we're going to play this week. So it'll be, but it'll be a different feel, we think, this week if things go as planned.
Ryan, for 2 games, the defensive ends haven't had any sacks. Is there anything you're seeing on film of just why they're not being able to get to the quarterback right now?
Again, I think it's just going to be a different situation this week with Western Kentucky. They're going to throw the ball a lot more than our last 2 opponents, and they're going to play fast and try to spread us out. I think they do an excellent job. I mean, it's going to be a big challenge for our defensive line. It's going to be a challenge for our defense. They do a great job on defense and try to change up the look. So schematically, we'll get stressed out. So this is a good challenge for us, and I think we'll have a better feel about that coming out of this game.
Do you think it is for the success of going forward for those guys to be getting pressure on a consistent basis?
Yeah, everything starts up front on both sides of the ball, and one of the things that the defensive line and Larry takes a lot of pride in is getting the pressure on the quarterback. So there'll be an opportunity this week doing that because of how much they throw the ball, and they have a really good quarterback, a really good scheme. So it goes hand in hand with the coverage. If the coverage is really strong, then the quarterback has to throw the ball or hold the ball longer. If the coverage is loose, the ball comes out a little sooner. And it's the same thing with the D line. They have to rush. If they're not getting to the quarterback, he can hold on to it longer. They have to work together. And so again, different approach this week than what we've seen in the last couple.
Ryan, you just talked about some of the ways Western Kentucky is very impressive. Of course, you're not going to overlook a team, but with Notre Dame next week and what this Western team can do, how dangerous are they at this point in your season?
Well, I think, for us, we know, areas that we have to improve, and we have some guys that haven't played a whole bunch of football, and then we have, some other guys who really are looking forward to take the next step in their development. So, I don't see it as that at all. We're not there right now. We got to keep building and growing and in all 3 phases. So I don't see it like that at all. We got a lot of respect for what they do, and watch the way they played Auburn last year, and I mean they'll put stress on us. So we got an opportunity to go out and try to play our best game of the year, and that's really what matters, and then we'll go from there.
You don't know much about Western Kentucky. What about head coach Tyson Helton and what they do offensively? Just really impressive.
Probably that they work off of each other. You can clearly see there's a plan on both sides of the ball and what they want to do. They want to throw it and score a whole bunch of points, and the defense, kind of works with the offense the way that they're set up. So impressed with that. They have an identity.
Clarify, by naming Kyle the starter, how does that change the practice week? I assume Devin said they were still splitting reps pretty much 50-50 last week. How does that change, and how do you envision that helping Kyle be better?
Yeah, well, I think first off, it gives Kyle first off peace of mind that I think he realizes that he is the starter and he's earned that opportunity. Secondly, he will receive more of the reps. Devin will still get reps in practice. He'll get reps with the ones, but Kyle will get a little bit more than he has the last couple of weeks. And I think it's good for the team to have that distinction, to know that Kyle right now is the starter.
You said Jack spring, or maybe even early February, when you were talking about this process, you were looking for special treatment. What's Common Core's special treatment?
I mean, I think right now, it would be consistency overall. Just, we've talked about managing the game in terms of making routine plays routinely, not making bad plays worse. And then we'd have an opportunity to go make that play on third down in the red zone. We got to go make it. And I think he's starting to learn how that works, how the game works, the preparation, and those type of things. And if we can keep building on that, then I think you'll see more and more play. Accuracy is another thing that he's missed a couple throws, but we see the accuracy in him that has a chance to be special as well.
And when you realized or saw the stat sheet, when you saw Travion's carries, what did you think of that?
I would love to see him get more touches. Yeah. But then again, when I looked at everybody, I wish they had more. Yeah.
It's like we've been coming out of the first week, like, well, Marvin's going to touch it more. And week two, now we're talking about Travion. I realize there are a lot of mouths to feed, and then, the efficiency plays into this as well. How much, when you're building or designing a game plan, do you have it in your mind, X number of touches for somebody?
We try to do, let's look at the schematics of it all and figure out, here's a play that we think we run that fits against this defense. Put it on the board. And then at the end, we'll say, okay, how is this all shaken out? Is it heavy one side or another? And what we're not going to do is compromise what's best for the team just to make sure that, everyone's touching the ball in a certain game. You saw in the first game, Julian and Cade got a bunch of touches. The next game, Marv got some more. And, that's pretty normal of the way it goes. So, we try to be aware of it, but at the same time, we're not going to let it affect, how we're doing our day-to-day stuff.
Ryan, have you faced an offense that's all comparable to Western Kentucky in terms of just the volume in which they throw over the last few years?
I felt like maybe a few years back against Indiana, they were throwing it a bunch, with Penix. I feel like they were throwing it a lot that year. You guys probably remember more than I do, but this is a little bit unique.
Is there anything you can draw on some of those, maybe like just some of Jeff Brom's teams? Is there anything you can draw on some of those teams you've faced before that I know you don't typically face air raids down in the Big Ten, but is there anything you can draw on those games that can help here?
Yeah. And I think Jim has probably a little bit more of a background with it being, coming from the Big 12 for a couple of years and seeing some of those styles of defense and our styles of offense going up against them. So he's got a pretty good, experience with those guys. So had some good conversations with him, and I think he's got a good plan.
Do you think this is good prep for Notre Dame, just in terms of Hartman being an accomplished guy?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's a good challenge for our guys. I do. I think it's a good challenge for all of us. So looking forward to getting to work and getting, it's a 4:00 game for us. We get the night game the next week. So, we played the noon game this past week. So I think, you're hitting a couple different times. You're hitting a couple different schemes, different styles. We've had to get on the road. So it's been good. It's been a good start for us. But now, going into the third week, we got to ratchet it up even more.
Are you sounding a warning that, hey, can't worry about next week today?
I just don't think that that's where we're at right now. I just think that we're one day at a time, growing every day. We know we want to play our best football at the end of the season, but we got to get better like now. And that's the message.
Scheduling gets tougher. What areas do you circled this week that you got to be better at?
Well, the third down is something that just statistically jumps out, but it's all areas. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that we're a finished product in any one area. If you name off all the different areas in the team, we're trying to get better. We know that we're not where we need to be, but it's like we say, it's 1.0, 2.0. This has got to be 3.0. This is going to be our third version of ourselves, and it's got to improve because now you're on film for 2 weeks, and teams do a great job, coaches do a great job of scheming you up, and ultimately, it comes down to playing really, really hard and competing and running around and tackling and playing with great emotion.
Do you see the improvement you wanted to see in the running game from your O-line?
No. Pretty high standard. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's anything that I'm content with right now. We got a long way to go in all areas. We just got to keep growing and building. And I think that's a good approach to have. Stay hungry every week.
Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom.
You mentioned last night's NFL game. It's just another year that we won't play away for the quarterback. And had Devin take the message and distinction with Kyle being the starter. What he needs he's ready to.
Yeah, Devin's a great competitor. He wants it really bad, and he knows that he's one play away, like you said, and he was great. But at the same time, he's going to get back to work this week and get better in the areas he needs to improve on. We've talked about it. I think it's just the overall consistency for him. You can see it, but he hasn't played a lot, so we're going to try to get him more and more experience, and hopefully the next time he gets out there, he's a little bit more poised and has a feel for the game because the talent is certainly there.
You talked about kind of stepping away and trying to more of a hand in everything. I guess almost 3 weeks into the season, how would you grade your ability to do that? Are you even still focused on doing that, or are you kind of reverted back to
No. I think that I'm definitely doing that better and more than I have in the past. But at the same time, we have young quarterbacks, and we got to continually work through the beginning stages of the season. So pushing hard in that area as well. Long days, but that's okay. That's part of the job. But I think certainly Quint Temple has really helped with that a lot. He's taken a lot of those things off of my plate just in terms of the overall management of the building. And then, having, Brian and Justin and Joe Philbin and Todd Fitch, to try to help out what the offense has done. They've done a really good job of helping me in that area as well.
I know you said that it would be easy to do in the off season, but it gets kind of hard in the season. I guess, has it changed at all in these 3 weeks, or is it pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's changed a little bit, but at the same time, you know you got to do to get the job done, and to win games. And a big part of that has been the way we do things on offense. So, going to stick with that, and the more and more the guys can take things and run, the more that I'll delegate.
Front row, Tim May on 3. Tim May show.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. Ryan, when did the decision hit you that this was the time and the moment where you eating dinner, eating breakfast, were you watching video? I'm talking about naming Kyle the modified dude.
I felt like it after the game. I just didn't feel like it was the right time until we reviewed the film. But I just felt like after the game, there was just an overall poise. Just to see that, I think led us all to think that, okay, Kyle's the guy right now.
And he seemed to throw the ball with more authority.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do. Yeah, we had some that came out with a lot more confidence for sure.
Yeah. And the sneak peek you've taken, at least at WKU and their offense, Austin Reed, particularly the quarterback, what jumps out at you about him? The way he led the nation in passing last year, pretty close.
Yeah, his story's interesting where he came from, and just in terms of wasn't a highly recruited guy. He's had to earn everything he's had to get, and that's usually the right recipe for a really good quarterback. But he's accurate. He gets the ball out of his hands. You can tell he's very, very intelligent, has good vision. So really good challenge for our defense this week. I mean, they're going to come after us, and I think for the D line, for the secondary, all of the above schematically. Looking forward to getting going this week and seeing how it plays out on Saturday.
Ryan, there was a lot of focus all offseason about leadership, the committees, the finding guys to step up and be that guy. A lot of the guys that have been picked, Cade, Xavier, Tommy, these are guys that are quiet guys on the outside looking at you guys on practice. You see a lot more than we do. Is there any concern that there's not a vocal enough presence in the locker room or on the field? It seems like there's just a little bit of a flatness. Because that's where those guys are. It's not a knock, but is there something more you're looking for?
I think Tommy does have a pretty strong voice out there on the field. I agree with you. I think off the field, he's a man of few words, but on the field, I mean, you can feel him. You can hear him. He has passion. He has intensity, and he runs the defense out there. I think Mike Hall, really, you feel him. You feel him on the field. I think Travion Henderson has done a really good job. I mean, you feel his intensity every day at practice. You feel him on the field. And so that's great. And I think the more some of the other guys, the more that they continue to build confidence this season, you'll start to see that more and more. But it's there. I like the way Kate played in the first game. I like his leadership out there. I think sometimes with the offensive line, you used to having maybe some older guys there. When you have 3 new starters there, you don't get as strong of leadership because they're still trying to figure it out. I think as they get more and more confident, you'll start to see those guys step up.
Feel that like any part of that is based on the early season schedule and maybe not having people looking ahead to something bigger. I mean, these games are hard to get up for everyone, but they are playing football at Ohio State, so you expect that they're out there with the right approach, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really felt that, but we'll keep pushing. We know that the challenges are coming, and it's only going to get harder and harder. The intensity is going to have to ratchet up for sure.
All right. Brian, you mentioned Kyle's consistency, but how much of this decision was wanting to stick with one quarterback so you can maximize the fewer possessions and the fewer plays that you do have?
I don't know. I didn't really look into it that much, but yeah, I mean, the more we can get those guys out there and the more reps they take, I know only the better they're going to get. And so, yeah, I mean, the more he can play, I see it. I saw the progression from week 1 to week 2, and hopefully we'll see the same progression in week 3.
Third row middle.
I mean, you've been talking a lot about consistency. I guess is that the prevailing message for the team this week right now, and how do you build consistency through? I mean, practice and just how do you keep working on that?
Well, there's a lot that comes with that. There's first off, there's just overall, bringing it every day in terms of your physicality. You have the physical part of it. Just the rest you have and being physical in practice. This is a violent collision sport. It's a combat sport. So, I mean, you got to physically bring it every day, and you have to be felt on the field. That's the first thing. The second thing is mentally, you have to prepare at a high level. It's like taking a test every day of practice. And, if you're not prepared mentally to go on the field and, utilize the techniques and the tools or execute the scheme, then, you're not going to be consistent. And then part of that is like the soul and the spirit of it all. It's just the overall, like, I got to bring this thing because, we're competing at the highest level there is in all of sports right now. And so those are the 3 areas where you have to bring it every day. And, we want more consistency in that area. Now, that's not unique to this team, but that is a message.
Oh, that thing.
That's hilarious.
You want me to say what I was saying?
We did. You almost, yeah. Well, that's because that was, yeah. Okay. Ryan, you were pretty straightforward with us after Indiana when we were talking to you about success. You said, hey, 250 on the ground, 300 through the air, want to score 50 points. Like that's kind of how you define it. But I'm curious, like in a week like this, aside from that, how do you define success this week? Like what things are you looking at saying, hey, we're going to, if version 3.0 of us is going to be really good, this, that, whatever it might be, how do you define success this week?
Well, I think the first thing is you want everyone to grade out a champion. You've heard us talk about that. So, we look at effort, we look at execution, we look at different things. And if guys grade over 80%, then they're a champion. I mean, that's a tangible thing you can look at. And, if you have your starters or you have a good portion of your offense or defense, grade out a champion, that's probably a pretty good day. If you don't, then that's not the direction we're trying to go in. So that's the job of the position coaches and the unit coaches and the leader, make sure that their unit is grading out a champion. And we have to be, hard and hold our standard of what is considered a champion and what isn't, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Now, we'll also look at the game and see, how do we do in third downs? How do we do in red zone? We go through all those situations in the team meeting on Sunday. Did we win those situations? We look at rushing yards. We look at explosive plays. We look at the red zone. We look at third down. We won most of those. We did not win third medium. So that's an area we need to see an improvement in. But so, I mean, those really, if you say tangibly, what are the things? The champions, and then did we win the situations?
I asked you last week about receivers in the blocking game, and there was one particular that sprung a Mecca for a touchdown where like 2 receivers blocked 3 guys to the ground. Are those the kinds of things that you guys show in film sessions that hopefully inspire the rest of the team? You see receivers doing stuff like that?
Yeah, and we show the good ones and we show the ones that we need to improve on. And it's part of our meeting on Sunday, and that was one of the ones that were on. That was a huge play. They did a great job. Also, the one on Trayvion's touchdown, Emeka, and Marvin did a really nice job, 3 for 3 on the perimeter. You make those blocks, that's when good turns to great, and that was a huge emphasis going into last week. We thought that we needed to block the perimeter better. We did that. Got to keep improving. Bigger challenges are coming ahead, but there was definitely some tangible things we saw that we showed the guys where if we make those blocks on the perimeter, we get the ball out there. That's a gain of 2 touchdowns. That if you don't make those blocks, they're gains of 5 and 6. So everyone has to do their part on offense.
Coaching on that play. What you know what I mean? The touchdown was called back for holding.
Again, I got feedback that that probably was not a hold. So I don't know. I don't know what to say.
That's all I wanted to hear. Got time for just a couple more.
This is not my question, but the way you answered that, you're getting a lot of those, aren't you? After the fact, for instance.
I mean, I guess it's part of the game. We'll worry about just getting our hands tighter and inside and doing a better job on 3rd down.
Kyle is a pretty flat line kind of guy. What was his reaction when you told him after all these months?
Kyle, like you said, is not someone that shows a ton of emotion all the time. He's excited, but he wasn't exactly jumping on the table when he asked me. I think it was more of a confirmation. I think he felt like the time was right, and I think he was right about that. This morning.
And you mentioned peace of mind for him. How much is peace of mind for you that you don't have to think about this anymore? We've got our guy. We've got West Kentucky, which we have challenged. We've got Notre Dame in the Big Ten. We need to have this done by now.
Yeah, I guess it's one less thing. Still got a lot of other things to worry about, but I think it's played itself out. I think if we sat here 2 weeks ago, we said we'll get a chance in 2 weeks to at least have 2 games to look at and see where it's at, and I think that's kind of how it went. You never know how it's going to go, right? It could go a million different ways. You even look at how the game went last night. I mean, unbelievable. But so you don't know. You don't have a crystal ball. But here we are. I think it's played out the way. And then there's also practice, and we've seen enough in practice to lead us to believe that this is the right thing to do.
Kings of Columbus.
Right. I guess Western Kentucky's maybe not pure air raid anymore, but it's on the tree.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
Sure.
Have you studied air raid much? Dabbled in it? Have you ever thought of instituting it more into what you do, or how much have you? What do you think of that philosophy?
It's an identity. It is. There's pluses and minuses to everything, and they do a great job of creating space and getting the ball out of their hand quickly and wide receiver screens and the throws off of them, and they're creative about some of their trick things that they do, and so we got to be on our game. They got to challenge us. But yeah, we look at everybody. I mean, I probably look at too many people, but always looking for great ideas of how teams attack others. But ultimately, you have to get back to what your identity is, and so there's certain things that are trends in different leagues, and certainly in the Big Ten, there's things that and teams and weather and just different things you have to consider.
And I know offensively you want to be efficient and explosive, right? That's a given. But that slider, right? Is it right in the middle all the time? We want to be efficient and explosive, or philosophically, is there a way that you lean within that, or does that change with your quarterback, with your players, with your team?
In the game, yeah. I think all those things you have to consider for sure. Every opponent's different, every situation's different. There's a lot of things to consider, and those are the decisions you try to do the best you can to put your team in the best situation, ultimately to reach your goals. Sometimes it may not be the best thing at the time or seem that way, but you try to do everything you can, and it's our job as coaches to do that. And sometimes you want to see how certain guys are responding. Sometimes you want to see, give somebody an opportunity to prove in a game that they can or they can't. sometimes, you have to be a little bit stubborn in certain areas to find out. And sometimes it's exciting, sometimes disappointing. But that's part of building a team and building an offense and figuring out what you can and can't do. Because like we said, going into week 1 and week 2, you make assumptions. And some assumptions are proven to be true, other assumptions are proven to be wrong, and then you keep building from there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, guys, we'll start with Coach Knowles. Here, front row left, Dave Biddle.
Hey, Coach, what are you seeing out of Jack and JT off the edge? Is it they're not getting a lot of pressure, but is it scheme? Are they getting their job done? Just what are you seeing out of JT and Jack?
Yeah, they're getting their job done. You know, we faced 2 games where really there weren't that many opportunities to pass rush. You know, that chance will come probably this week. But like I always say, you never know. It looks like this week they're going to get their chance. You know, we faced an option attack and you know, last week a lot of teams trying to run the ball on 3rd down, you know, shorten the game. So they just haven't had the opportunities yet.
Right behind him, Nathan Baird.
As you've been formulating this, you know, your defensive philosophy over the years, these run or RPO heavy offenses, how much do you have to adjust your philosophy to attack a team like this, or do you feel like this philosophy is built already?
Yeah, we built it over the years for the RPO. I think sometimes you can get lulled to sleep, you know, or lose your eyes. A lot of it is about eye discipline, but you know, the answers are there. They're in the system. I feel good about what we have. It's just continued training.
We'll go next to Spencer Holbrook, letterman row.
Jim, what did you like so much about Jordan in the slot on Saturday? Do you think that you guys are going to be able to use that to your advantage moving forward?
Yeah, he's a athletic, competitive guy, you know, who showed also from that position a willingness to tackle, you know. So those guys get into the mix as tacklers. And yeah, he showed a toughness also with having the foot speed up the corner, which is ideally what you look for.
Go second row right here, Bill.
Jim, I guess just maybe as part of your philosophy, how important are like havoc plays behind the line of scrimmage, stop up the loss and sacks, and when you come out of a game where you're playing an FCS opponent, you only get 3 tackles for losses, team runs the ball a lot. Is that not meeting the standard, or do you not concern yourself with those kind of plays?
I think I've adjusted, you know. I think when you're at places where you need to live in that world, you know, feast or famine type of world where you're trying to make sure that you take a lot of chances, do a lot of different things to somehow gain the advantage. You know, I think I've adjusted my philosophy here because we have different players, and you know, my job is to make sure that we win the game, not get the TFLs. And a lot of times I think the best philosophy here is to let the guys play, keep the points off the board.
That adjustment from Oklahoma State
Absolutely.
to here. When did that kind of flip for you, I guess?
You know, probably last year when we experienced some issues. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was, I think if you live in that world against teams that, you know, where you have a skill advantage, it can look really nice. But when you get into the matchup games, you know, I found that it can hurt you. So you need to be able to adjust.
Like in your past, just especially the last 2 years of Oklahoma State, you guys were one of the best teams in the country in making those kind of plays. Were those more the byproduct of, I guess, hyper aggression, being willing to sell out a little more to make those plays?
Absolutely. Yep.
Fourth row middle, Tony Verdeman, Buckeye Hill.
Jim, seemed like you guys lost leverage a little bit more than the previous week. Would you agree with that? What would you assess?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that it's guys trying to do too much. You know, we have to make sure that as coaches that they do their jobs and trust the defense. You know, we have guys who want to make plays, and I think at times that leads you to, you know, putting your eyes in the wrong place.
Was that when they did so well the week before against an offense they weren't expecting to see, and then you see an offense you're expecting to see?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first week, you know, we definitely got into because it was such a different approach. The practice. I think, all the guys came together and we made adjustments, and it felt like the energy and everybody was, just trying to get their job done because you're trying to figure out the option. There was a hyper focus on that. And then this week, I think guys just trying to do too much.
Go right here in the front off sport.
Jim, did you find yourself blitzing on Saturday more than you expected to?
I always expect to blitz, just pick and choose the moments. Probably, when the first drive went south, I pulled it out to try to create that aggression, try to get us back in front of the sticks. But in general, overall, probably not. A couple times on the first drive more than I would have expected.
Stay here in the front row.
How does Western Kentucky's air raid, if you will, compare to some of the teams you face in the Big 12 with the emphasis to put on the passing game, and is there anything you can draw from those matchups?
Absolutely. They're, very similar to a Big 12 type of offense. They'll throw the ball down the field to get you running on the perimeter, trying to tire out your defensive linemen, get you moving sideways in order to then go up top, create eye violations. So, yeah, it's similar.
Are there things from those, like, just to stop a team like that, are there things that are really important for your defense?
Yeah, you have to be able to keep the ball in front of you. You got to be able to, I call it smart swarm. You got to be able to chase with proper leverage. You can't just chase randomly on the screens. Everybody's got to be at the right place.
Third row middle, Dan Hope of Noise.
Jim, what went into the decision to take Malik out of the game after that first series and go with Jihad the rest of the way?
Malik just looked like he struggled a little bit on the first series, and that's natural for a true freshman. He still will have the opportunity to play. Just thought it was best to get Jihad in there, a guy who had a little more experience.
Where do things stand right now in terms of who your top free safety is going into this week?
Well, if Josh is healthy, depending on what kind of practice time he gets, right? It really depends on practice and how well you practice. But I could see Josh moving back in there.
With deep center field, Jeremy Birmingham.
Maybe this is me playing too much video games when I was younger, but when you have a guy like Sonny Styles who is so different and can move and play basically on the edge or play nickel or play deep safety, in a week like this where you're playing against a team that you expect to throw the ball around a lot, is there any thought to having him in the middle and keeping Jordan on the field in the slot so you can get both of those guys' length and athleticism out there?
Yeah, I think it's always a possibility. Sonny can do a lot of different things, and we want to build that in. At the same time, Sonny's young, and we want to make sure he gains the experience necessary to be, a premier player at his position. So it's always that balance. How much more anything you do with him in other places, would be appropriate. You do take away from his continued learning and progress at his position.
Back down here to the front, middle, dispatch.
Just how big a test will this be for you? Because I'm sure your secondary is waiting for somebody to test them. How big a test is this going to be for them?
I think it's a big test. I really do. This is an offense that will attack on the perimeter and down the field. We had some issues with that last year. We've gotten better in our first couple games in terms of explosive plays and minimizing that, but we haven't really been tested yet, so this will be important.
The question that Bill asked before, your change in philosophy because of where you're at, did that kick in at the end of last year in the off season, or even the first two games this year?
Yeah, I think it was, building throughout the season. We gave up explosive plays, even to Indiana, who we played, or Toledo last year, we gave up explosive plays, So those were still wins, but it was always on my mind. And then it really came in after the season when I did the study.
Kyle Cameron, T. Robinson.
Jim, when you look at a guy like Davison, obviously the most important, obviously the thing important is you want to get your hands on the ball, you want to get interceptions. But when you have a guy like Davison who, even if he gets up a completion, is so physical that he barely keeps up a tackle on the outside, does that sometimes be overlooked for outside corner?
His ability to play on the outside run, yeah. I think nowadays people think of corners just as cover guys, but they're teams build that in. When you're playing with 5 DBs or different situations, they build that in to try to get to the corner in the run game and in the scheme. So I think it's a big bonus to have a guy like him who will tackle.
Go right here to the second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just more on the Jordan Hancock, Cameron Martinez situation. When you're deciding whether you're going to go with a corner or a safety there in those third and long situations, what is going through you and Perry's mind when you're trying to decide which one you want to go with?
Well, you're balancing how much man you're going to play versus how much zone, how much disguise you want to have, what has been their zone training, do they understand all the calls, that the safeties would? Did they understand all the calls? Do they understand all the different formations? And as man, you certainly want the corner in there, but you have to have other looks off of it. So now it's okay. Does he understand those, and does he understand where he fits in the zone?
Right next to him, Doug Lane-Reese, Rivals.
Jim, again, just what you're talking about with sort of adjusting your philosophy. Is that difficult? Was it obvious to you? Was it something that when you came to Ohio State, you thought maybe I will be less feast or famine because of the type of player? I'm just curious about, you've been doing this for a long time. How much of a sea change is this for you?
It's a change. How much, I don't know. I try to pride myself in changing, over the years, because the game changes, your personnel changes. I can't, if I'm honest, I can't say that was on my mind when I came here, because the things that you do the previous stop are working, so you bring those with you. But I was of the mindset, of course, okay, I have to see the personnel, I have to see how they react, I have to see how they handle, all the different patterns and the comprehensive nature of the system. And then, it's really just learning and trying to grow and trying to do what's best to win. It's not what I know, it's what our players know, and it's what they do best.
And then just philosophically, and I know it probably changes game to game, at a place like this with the players you have here, do you take more risks and are more aggressive in an equal talent game against the best opposition, or do you back off on the aggressiveness in an equal talent game because we still trust our guys and we don't want to give up a big play because we're trying to be aggressive? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to see the flow of the game. You have to, it's always about balance, right? You never want to be predictable. You want to be able to put the pressure in when it's least expected. So to me, it's really about balance and unpredictability. You don't want somebody to be able to just line you up and say they know what you're going to do. So you're just trying to change up. And when you get to those games, you have to look at your self-scout and you have to say, okay, what have I done in this situation in the past? And do I want to stick with it, or is it time to throw a curveball?
Got time for just a couple more. We'll go deep left. Justin Walter.
After the game, Denzel said he had much more of a pro approach to how he went about the offseason and is now seeing the results of that. How have you seen that, whether it's on film, you talked about habits being what a person is, how have you seen that come to fruition these past 2 weeks?
Everything you see in the game, you see in practice, right? Otherwise you're not doing a good job as a coach. So yeah, I've seen it starting last spring from him, just his demeanor, his attitude, the way he takes care of his body, the brightness in his eyes, the locked in learning, all those things. So we saw it all through spring and camp and expect to see it in the game, and we have so far.
Player who had the up and downs he had last year, to have that reflection and talk to himself a lot, he said that, and to go from that to where he is now and learn from those moments and not let it get too far down.
It's difficult, right? It's difficult for all of us to change. It's difficult for all of us to be introspective and realize where maybe you can do better. So, and imagine it's even more difficult for a young person under the spotlight of a top 5 program and the pressure that he gets to be able to sit back and look at that. So I give him a lot of credit.
Oh, sorry.
Andy.
That's it.
It's Andy. Hi, Andy.
So going back to Davidson, you talk about being aggressive or not aggressive. He's given up 8 catches the first 2 weeks. Do you rather him keep those in front of him because he doesn't give up many yards after the catch? Are you okay with that, or do you want him to be more aggressive on some of those targets?
More aggressive. Stay aggressive. Keep throwing punches. Don't change. Don't back off. Keep fighting. He's doing a good job.
Good row middle, Patrick Murphy.
Jim, Ryan's talked to us quite a bit about the clock rules and fewer possessions, things like that. How much has that been a conversation with the defensive side of the ball, and maybe what you guys can do to get the ball back to the offense to kind of help alleviate some of those issues?
Definitely after this game. I thought our third down production was not good enough. So we have to it's one of those things you always emphasize, the third down. And now you get to show your players how important it is and how you give up a couple third downs, but they don't score. Ultimately, that's a check. But we're at Ohio State. We need a check plus, Check plus means get the damn ball back, and we need to do a better job of that.
Wrap it up right next to him with Brendan Mulick, BuckeyesNow.
A couple quick things. Does Austin Reed remind you of anybody that you've played against in the past?
Played against a lot of good players. He looks like all the rest of them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Arvell Reese got a little banged up this week. Is he okay?
He's okay. I don't know his status for this week, but he's okay.
General, through the first couple of games, are you fairly happy with just general bumps and bruises and things when you guys feel like you're fairly healthy outside of the injury for Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general we're doing okay health wise.
Sorry, we got one more down here, Tim.
Yeah. Austin Reed, and what just jumps out at you about him, Jim, as you watch him play their quarterback? I mean, obviously led the nation in passing last year and stuff. What just jumps out at you?
He seems like a quarter. I call it. He operates with impunity. Just like he just has a catch the ball, sling it around mentality. Doesn't get hit a lot. You know what I mean? That's where you really take notice. Is just like an operator, like a cool operator. And he's just never seems under pressure. Doesn't make a lot of bad throws. Just slings it with a purpose, like knows where he's going, doesn't get caught off guard too much.
And the other thing, going in a game like this, I would think my thought on this game is they're going to come in throwing haymakers and seeing if y'all can handle it. I mean, that's kind of a rudimentary way of looking at it, but do you have that sense too? I mean, how do you keep your defense? I guess how do you heighten the alert? On the defensive side of the ball about what these guys have in mind.
Coaching, that's coaching. You have to show them what they're up against, prepare them, have a plan. But yeah, I think they'll do the same thing. I think they ran 90 plays against Auburn last year. So, I don't expect that they're going to try to slow the game down like we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Thank you, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.